Hi there. I'm not sure anyone should take up permanent residence in the world of Masahisa Fukase, a Japanese photographer who turned the camera inward until it became a void. He was one of Japan's most radical and experimental post-war photographers, but also one of the most tragic. He walked a line between obsession and being a creative visionary. His images are filled with love, rage, and profound loneliness. It's sometimes difficult to separate the performance from the art, as well as the narcissism from the visual biography. Everyone that was in his orbit became bit players within his crusade to create an intensely personal vision, including his wife Yoko, his dying father, and his beloved cat Sasuke. As he tore through his relationships and his own troubled psyche, he managed to maintain a level of playful humor, which saves his work from being assigned to the realm of narcissistic indulgence. I'll lead up to his seminal work Ravens, which is often cited to be one of the greatest photo books of all time. He was born in the small town of Bifuka on Japan's northern island. He was the eldest son of a family that ran a small photography studio which had been started by his grandfather. Fukase was the third generation to pursue photography, and his father had hoped that he would take over the family business. He made him help with the processing of prints from the age of 6. Fukase's relationship to photography was from that point onwards contradictory. He said that he maintained a grudge towards photography. There was a sense that the medium had been thrust upon him. His rebellion against the constraints and conformity of tradition drove him to create work that reflected a suppressed rage. When he was 18, he left home to study photography at a university in Tokyo. And when he graduated, instead of returning home to take over the family business, he found a job as a commercial photographer and then threw himself into his personal work. I've discussed in previous videos how during the 1960s and 1970s, Japanese photography underwent radical shifts. While Fukase wasn't a formal member of the Provoke group, his work was deeply aligned with its ethos. What set him apart was that he was focused on personal introspection, while the work of many of his contemporaries was socially and politically charged. Fukase worked almost exclusively in series, some of which took several decades to complete. Through his various bodies of work, one can trace a constant preoccupation with visual biography. His vision was more aligned with shishashin, or eye photography. He wanted his work to be autobiographical and emotional, not just documentary. And he embraced visual imperfection in order to mirror psychological fault lines. His 1961 show, Kill the Pig, secured his place within the flourishing Japanese photography scene. Critics described the work as a personal and violent document. In this book, he included a picture of his stillborn child that his first wife had given birth to. From 1971 onwards, Fukase made periodic journeys back to his childhood home in Hokkaido. He continued photographing his family for 2 decades, particularly his father after he became ill. These portraits are deceptively simple, but they speak volumes about the reversal of roles, the inheritance of an art form, as well as about mortality. The portraits were taken in his father's studio, and the pictures are almost preempting the older man's absence. He lit the scenes with the same studio lighting that his father would have used. Fukase sometimes includes himself in the frame using a self-timer. He saw photography as a macabre art, one that allows the viewer to exist beyond the progression of time. He understood that every member of the family whose image he captured on film would at some point die. This picture of his father has sometimes been thought of as a cruel payback for the harsh times that he had to endure in his youth. His father had a very short temper and would tip over easily into rage. In 1964, he married Yoko, and from the outset, he began obsessively taking autobiographical pictures of their relationship. His early images of their domestic life are often compared to Japanese ai novels, which were written in a confessional tone and the stories were self-revealing. But the couple's time together couldn't be described as marital bliss. Yoko said, "In the 10 years we lived together, he really only looked at me through the lens of a camera, and the photographs that he took of me were unmistakably depictions of himself." She began to realize that they only seemed to be together for the sake of the photographs. In one series called From Window, Fukase photographed Yoko heading off to work every morning from his fourth-floor window, using a telephoto lens. She displays a range of emotions, playful, erotic, distant, and sometimes exhausted. She was trained as an actress, and his recording of her performances have been interpreted as an expression of his own emotional needs and desires, his possessiveness, loneliness, and melancholy. After Yoko signed divorce papers in 1976, he became overwhelmed by a deep, dark depression. The title of a later exhibition comes from an article written by Yoko in which he stated a belief that all of his photographs of her were a reflection of himself. After their breakup, the tone of his photography changed completely. It moved from being erotic play to desolation. In Ravens, her absence becomes the central theme. He began what is now considered to be his masterpiece, Ravens, in 2010. The British Journal of Photography asked a panel of experts, including Chris Killip and Jerry Badger, to select the best photo books of the previous 25 years. Nan Goldin's Ballad of Sexual Dependency only managed second place after Fukase's Ravens. His interest in pursuing this project was apparently sparked during a bleak train ride to Fukase's hometown. He began to get off the train at various stations along the way and photograph these birds. This began an obsessive creative journey that would last more than 10 years. His stark, high-contrast black and white images creates a world of shadows and voids. They visually echoed his own despair and isolation. The raven is symbolically the trace of Yoko, in a way haunting and mocking him as it avoids capture. It's interesting, even when he was photographing her absence, metaphorically through ravens, she remains a mere instrument for his expression. She and the ravens are not the actual subject. They are the mirrors of the void within it. He uses light, shadow, and gesture to project emotional states. So his pictures become psychological landscapes rather than ornithological studies. He used underexposure, blurring, and distortion to suggest his inner turmoil, as well as the uncertainty of his memories. While he was grappling with loss, he was also contemplating his own mortality and fragmented identity. In these scenes, Fukase used a flash while photographing at night. This caused the highlights within the raven's eyes. In the prints, they become piercing white dots scattered through the blackness of the branches. These images have been interpreted in various ways. The bright eyes within the frames can be seen as a metaphor for his memories, a sudden, almost violent light of awareness within a void of forgotten experiences. The book was published in the 1980s when Japan was experiencing rapid modernization, so it was out of sync with the economic optimism of that period. It possibly reveals a shadow side of the country. The raven carries mythological weight in both Japanese folklore and in Western symbolism. It's seen as a messenger between worlds and also an omen of darkness and dangerous times. In 1992, Fukase fell down a flight of steep stairs at his favorite bar. The accident resulted in severe brain injury, and he slipped into a coma and remained in that state for 20 years until his death in 2012. Over this period, his ex-wife Yoko visited him twice a month. I'll run some images from Buku Buku, and in this series he turned the camera on himself. The collection of self-portraits sheds light on the obsessive manner in which he relates to the world and to himself. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time.